Hey everybody, I don't know, my computer was trying to restart and reboot on me. Let's get going.
It's
Hold
the
on.
secrets that make us sick. You can't fix what you won't acknowledge. So let's have a conversation. It's time. We're taking it out of the box. Yeah, yeah. We're taking it out of the box. We're taking it out of the box. You know it's time. So let's talk about it.
All right. I don't know what I mean, I've never had computer problems right before the show was about to start, but I guess it's the first time for everything, right? So today we have a very interesting conversational topic, cancel culture. So let's start with you, Derek. How would you define cancel culture?
For me, I think council culture is when is what's kind of going on right now in this generation, where not very far from your actions, you're made aware of the consequences in a very public situation, possibly on like Twitter. I think it started with like Black Twitter. So like somebody you do something stupid, somebody post it on Twitter, and they're like, okay, do your thing. And it's like we find out where you are. I think it's called doxing, like they find out where you work and all this kind of stuff. And then immediately all of these consequences flow from whatever you did that was stupid.
Now, this is going to sound really crazy, probably for me. Is there a black Twitter?
Absolutely. Yes, there's something called Black Twitter.
Okay, is there like a separate address that's black Twitter?
No, I think it's just a microcosm of like Black America or the Black world, right? It's just certain topics that trend in Black Twitter, and they usually trend there first. And so I think like all of this council culture stuff, so that you can think of like the Karen stuff that happened. So a lot of that started in Black Twitter, where like again somebody was doing something stupid, they got caught on video. Somebody posted, and then they're like, "Okay, do your thing," and then it's like doxing. You just go and you find their address, and you find where they work, and you start posting it over and over and over to where you're adding like where they work, right? Like so, if they say they work for Apple, you start tweeting at Apple or like whatever whatever social media platform you're using, and they start to see it, and then they're like, okay, hey, we need to do something because it's so much bad press, so to speak, and then the consequences sort of flow, and then it's like, okay, we did our thing, let's move on to the next one.
All right. So, Erica, what do you know about cancel culture happening here lately?
What do I know? What I know is it's happening more than it should. I think that we are using it to silence people who we just merely disagree with. You know, a lot of times it seems like lately it's just people having a difference of opinion, or they may be in the unfavorable category with certain topics. And let's take Trump, for example. And that's, you can be canceled for that. You can be canceled for saying, I voted for Trump. Even, you know what I mean? I had a very interesting situation with that, and so I think that we are using it, especially the black culture. I think that we're using it very carelessly. I think we're using it to attack our own people, and I think we need to take a beat and step back and realize that this thing that this tool or this weapon that we have, that I think started as a way to kind of even the playing field when it comes to the dominant culture, because a lot of times they're getting away with doing things with different types of behaviors, and this was a way for us to hold them accountable. But now we're turning it on ourselves, and we should really look at that and examine that, because now we're hurting our own people with that.
So, Q, did cancel culture start with black folks?
No, and I think I'm in agreement with pretty much everything that Derek and Erica said, with the exception of the. I don't feel that that's where it started, and I don't think that's where it prevails with black people. We don't. We don't really have. We have very little power when it comes to cancel culture. We can state our opinion, but we don't really own radio stations. We don't own these major corporations. We don't own the media. We don't own the TV. We don't own these big, huge. We don't the biggest platforms. We don't own those, so we don't really have the ability to cancel a person because we don't. We can show our outrage, our disgust, but we don't possess the tools to actually shut down their money flow, and that's where canceling comes in. When you shut down their shows and shut down their ability to make money, you get them fired from the TV stations. That's white people stuff. We don't really have the ability to cancel people on that large of a level.
So,
Can I just? I'm sorry.
yes. No, come on.
Can I just add one thing? I agree with you, with the exception of, but we do sign on to it, and so we give license to it, and we stand by it, and we give it more momentum and power. So I do agree with you, but I think when we stand in agreement with it, then we give it more power and more leverage.
Right, and that's what I was saying is that since black people are the drivers of culture, it starts on social media, and that's why I reference Black Twitter. Is that black people as a whole may not control those companies that are doing the counseling, but they're driving the traffic and making the noise that leads to it.
So, Nikki, what are your thoughts about cancel culture? Because I know you're like, yeah, I'm in for that. But so throw it at me.
Q's already shaking his head because Q knows I'm an advocate of cancel culture. And I don't mean I'm an advocate of cancel culture because I realize there's a difference between cancel culture and I think for me what is more of an ethical, moral boycott aspect to goods and services and people and anything that doesn't deserve my money.
Okay.
And I understand what Q says when he says, black people may not have the power to be able to cancel things, but I totally disagree because yes, you do. Yes, you absolutely do. If more control of where our dollar as a whole, or even if you want to take just black people, if we had more discipline to control our dollar, who it went to, how we spent it, what we signed on for, like y'all said, it wouldn't take long for the others, the powers that be, to be like, oh, wow, okay, well, there's been a difference of support, there's been a difference of dollars, because they really don't give a shit about anything but dollars, right, at the end of the day. And if the dollar is controlled more, which it can absolutely be controlled more, we don't have to own none of those platforms. We still control those platforms. We keep their pockets lined by subscribing to those platforms. So for me, cancel culture boycotting, I don't do it in the petty aspect of, I don't like you, so I'm just going to cancel you. But ethically, morally, philosophically, are you a bigot? Is your corporation full of bigots? Is your corporation full of racists? Is your corporation full of, philosophy-minded people who are, about oppression and suppression? So for that, like, I'm an advocate of cancel culture because I believe in accountability. I believe in holding people's feet to the fire. And if you're doing something for me that I feel is, unethical, immoral, hypocritical, you will never see another dollar from me. And I will speak out about why I do not contribute to your pockets.
Okay, so I guess you've given me a lot of thread to kind of go down. So let me kind of take these piece by piece. Bishop Foreman, can we control where not can we in terms of do we have the ability? Is it possible to wrangle enough people together to get them unified in a mission? We're not going to send our money X. We're not going to put our dollars X. Not from an ability, but from a reality. Can we get enough people together to make counseling effective?
So again, possible, sure. Probable, not.
Possibility and probability are two different things. I think conceptually, it makes a lot of sense. Today, the governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, from what I understand, resigned amid allegations, which I think, and I only reference that to say that he was in a fighting mood. The reporting was he was in a fighting mood. He was denying the allegations. He said, "This is not, I'm a friendly guy. This kind of thing." I don't care to get into the threat of that because none of us was part of that. None of us was there, so none of us can speak to that with any level of intelligence, except to examine that that is really systemic of what we're talking about with this type of culture, is that the pressure that was put on him led to his resignation. Now, one might argue that pressure would be the effect of a type of culture that cancels. To your question, yes, probable. I think it really depends on what the issue is. I think it depends on what the issue is. I also think it depends on what the outcome is. Years ago, Chick-fil-A did some things that many people in LGBTQ felt was not, they didn't like that. And, they were anti-Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A, though, still did well, but they certainly, it made their president say, "I'll be quiet about political issues." So was the goal to shut Chick-fil-A down or to make him shut up? I think it really depends on what the goal is when you say cancel culture. What exactly are we trying to cancel? Are you trying to cancel the corporation? Are you trying to cancel the message? Are you trying to change the message? So possible, yes. Probable, depends on what the goal of the cancel is.
Okay, so Q, Jonathan Lindell Kirk, he apparently made some very questionable remarks. We know Jonathan Lindell Kirk as the baby.
Oh, that's I'm like, I have no idea who
We
this
don't know
guy
about
is you're talking about.
that. We know the baby.
I was trying to intellectualize us in this conversation. So he made some very questionable comments. To be honest, I don't even know what the comments are. I never actually read them. But we know he made these comments. There was this big thing. Let's cancel him. He got kicked off of this, got kicked off of this. He no longer invited to this. He apologized. And then he said, "Screw it. I take back my apology."
Hold on, is this recent? He took the apology back?
Yes.
He deleted the apology from his platform.
The first apology or the second apology?
I think this was the second one. This was the second one that he actually wrote out, or his team.
Okay. Well, the only reason I asked for relevancy is because we had a very long conversation last week about this on Free Thinkers, about the value of standing on what you believe in. So this is new information to hear that he retracted his second apology.
Yeah, I didn't hear that either.
Conveniently disappeared. I don't know that he has said, "I'm taking my apology back." I just know that it was deleted from his social media.
Okay.
So now, see, again, all of these threads, I want to talk about all of it. Okay, so first off, so he says what he says, and apparently he's apologized several times, a couple times at least. Then, he deletes or rescinds this apology. What do you think about somebody? And the reason why I bring him up first, because we've seen that even with the Kirk Franklin thing, him and his son get into it, and he has to get on social media and apologize because he's afraid that, because this is where his source of income comes from, his livelihood. My question to you is, did the baby need to apologize? And if he did or did not, what is the impact of him saying, "Screw it, let me delete this apology"?
That don't mean that he didn't retract the apology. He just deleted the tweet, I'm guessing. So that don't mean nothing to me. First of all, I will say just what he said, I thought what he initially said was in bad taste. That was just my personal opinion. As a lot of rappers and things that they do or say in their music or just speak, period, or people in general. There's a lot of stuff that I disagree with. And what he said to me was in bad taste. Now, Whether or not I think it's in bad taste has nothing to do with me thinking that somebody should be canceled or thinking that they should even apologize for it. If that's what you said, if that's how you feel, then you need to stand on how you feel. I don't know what world are we coming to where it's so my issue with cancel culture, it's about number one, the hypocritical element of it, because all this stuff hypocritical. You can kill people and murder and pimp and hoe and do everything in a music video, but you can't say anything about LGBTQ or I mean, they just pick and choose. That's the main thing that gets on my nerve about cancel culture. But if you can't stand on what you say, we really don't have freedom of speech if you can still cancel people in that manner. You're just going a different way about it. And the main thing I took away from that, which I hope everybody takes away from, these people that you look up to, whether there's actors, entertainers, politicians, all of these people, if they can be forced to apologize that quickly and that easily, you don't really like that person. You just like a representation of what they present. But they themselves don't even own themselves. So you should kind of be careful before you champion or say this is my favorite, whatever it is.
Okay, so I'm gonna jump down to you, Erica. Should he have apologized if that's how he genuinely felt?
I might stand in the minority with this, but I think I stand with Q. I don't think he should apologize for anything. Do I agree with what he said? No. Do I think it was in bad taste like Q? Yes, I do. But a lot of things are done in bad taste. And, I heard what he said. To me, it was like, oh, here's somebody saying something stupid again. And I went on about my day. Okay. And I think most people in that audience did the same thing. You had a small group of people that probably didn't look like us that pushed this situation forward. And then you had us that jumped on the bandwagon. I don't think you should have apologized. You said it, go on about your day. I further think that it probably wouldn't have gotten the traction that he did get had he just not said anything. Had he just, because what a lot of people don't know is he said the very same thing the night before at another concert. Nothing was said about it. Nothing was done, because it was just yet another stupid thing that an artist said, and nobody made a big deal. It was at this particular spot, for whatever reason, a small group of people had a problem with it, and they're the ones that pushed this. So, he said it. So, I mean, it doesn't take back what he said, especially if he doesn't really agree, which that's my understanding. You didn't even see that he said anything wrong. So now you're just making someone say something because they're afraid of losing their pocket. No, I don't agree he should have apologized at all.
So Derek, then my question to you would be, so is cancel culture really boiled down to I got my feelings hurt, so now let me go out with all vengeance to destroy this person, this entity, this sane whatever that hurt my feelings?
No, in my opinion, it's not. And let me just say that as an avid fan of the baby, I was hurt by the craziness. Now, because let me just say, I want my art. This is one of the reasons why I want my artists to just be artists. Like, I don't need you to be making commentary on stuff, especially when you're ignorant as he is, right? But the thing about it is, it's not about just an emotion of, oh, my feelings were hurt, let me just attack. It's that this is a failure to read the room, right? Because if he had said these things, maybe just 2 years ago, this is what we mean by cancel culture. Nothing would have happened. Like, he would have been okay. But we're in a situation right now where you cannot get on national TV or anywhere because somebody's got a phone video on it, right? Saying stuff about certain groups, right? So right as it stands right now, some of the biggest hot topic issues would be any kind of thing when it comes to racism, right? So if it's you are Karen and you're acting out or whatever, that's probably going to go viral. You're probably going to be canceled. Also, anything when it comes to the gay community, if you out saying anything that's anti-gay or homophobic or anti-trans, all that kind of stuff, you're going to be canceled. It's like, I know that because, as I always say on this show, I work in a high school. So I know right now, I know what's going on in terms of this generation, in terms of the zeitgeist of this generation right now, right? So if he felt that way, like I agree with the people who have said, this is the way he felt and he shouldn't apologize. The reason why he apologizes is because, as somebody said before, it's the economics behind it. It's the money, right? So I'm sure he doesn't even know what he did wrong. But somebody in his team finally said, hey, we need to try to get out in front of this because we messed up so far. We're losing all these dollars. Let's just at least issue an apology, right? So again, it's a failure of people to read the room and to know where we are right now. Back to bring in Cuomo. What Cuomo did, or what he did allegedly, what he's accused of doing, those are things that we've all heard about bosses doing. 2 or 3 years ago, it would have happened. Nobody would have said anything. But in this culture right now, it comes out, and I mean, cancel culture is very strong, where it can happen at 8 o'clock in the morning, and by 9 o'clock, you have lost everything. I'm here for it.
So Nikki, all three, Derek, Q, and Erica, I haven't gotten Bishop Foreman's opinion yet. We'll get to him in just a second. They said he should not have apologized if that's what he genuinely believed. But when you were talking about, hey, this is where, we spend our money on things or brands or people that represent the same value that I have. Is there a conflict then in supporting his right to say what he wants, even if you personally disagree with it?
I mean, one of the things that I hear people say a lot in these situations, and Q mentioned it, is that there is no free speech, right? There's free speech. We're not free of consequence of what we say. And a lot of people fail to remember, you can say whatever you want. You can feel however you want, and you can generally do it on any platform in which you choose. But there is going to be consequence of your thoughts, of the things that come out of that mouth, right? Chris Brown even said something shortly after this whole issue went down with DaBaby, and everybody was like, I wonder who he's talking to. He was like, shut up, do your damn job, and get off the stage when it's over. Now, on one side, okay, that's how you please the masses. That's how you make the man happy, right? On the other side, if this man wants to be who he truly authentically is, then he should be able to say whatever he wants to say. And that's fine. You're going to have to take the repercussions should there be some blowback. I don't have a problem with cancel culture because cancel culture is holding people's feet to the fire. It is keeping people accountable. And you can't just, perfect example, Bishop Foreman, Chick-fil-A. My family hasn't supported Chick-fil-A in about 4 years once that come out. I have the discipline to be able to say no. I can go eat chicken somewhere else. Hell, I'm a vegan. I don't eat chicken anyway, so it doesn't bother me really when it's all said and done. But we're not going to give. We're not going to give our money. We're not going to give our money to a company that legislates that gay people can't have equal human rights. But we'll take your money. We'll employ you to work here. We'll use you for what we can get out of you, but we don't support your ability to be able to get married. And I know that's a touchy subject for all people. But you can't be a bigot. So on some cases, yes, there have been plenty of scenarios where cancel culture, and I feel like the weakened sense, definitely has been abused, and people have certainly paid the price for some of the things that maybe the masses just went way to the extreme with. But in most situations, when you calling out somebody's bad behavior and you put them on the spotlight, most folks don't like that. So a lot of times people will disagree with cancel culture because they don't want that spotlight showing the truth. They don't want that spotlight highlighting some of the things that they've said or done. Now, should he apologize? I'm not going to tell that man whether he should or he shouldn't apologize, because I come from a place where if I say it, I meant it. If you don't like it, then that's a you problem, not a me problem. But I don't work for other people either for a reason. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't feel like what he said. I'm not part of the gay community, so I can't say I felt offended. I can't say that I felt some type of way, but I understand why some people did. But I also understand where he was, what he does, who he said it to, what his target audience is. I've been listening to rap music since I was 8 years old. Like, this is nothing new. I think that there's just so many things happening socially, culturally, because of social media, that there's a highlight on all these things kind of happening at the same time. But what's wrong with holding people accountable? What's wrong with saying, I don't agree with your philosophy, so therefore I'm not going to support you. That's a way to hold people accountable. If you lose money, that's your bad. Somebody said he might not have known what he said. I bet he knew at the end of that show. He learned that day, and it was a teachable moment. And I hope that that's what his particular situation was a teachable moment, because he didn't go all out crazy, super flaming offensive, like to most people, right? I know a lot of gay people who said, it was distasteful, but I'm not like mega offended, right? Now, some people obviously were.
So what did they teach him other than make sure that you fall in line with everybody else?
Well, so I think the biggest issue that some people had was the statement when he said HIV and STDs and kill you in 2 to 3 weeks. And people were like, okay, that's not how that works, So an actual teachable moment of, this is how HIV is. This is what AIDS does. This is how long people can live for it with, instead of just coming off the rip like saying an ignorant statement. But that's my whole issue with apologizing. Apologizing just keeps you in line. If what you said you meant, then stand on it. So I don't think he should have apologized, because that's what he felt. But you are going to be responsible in today's culture of social media.
So, Bishop Foreman, let me ask you, is the church kind of guilty somewhat of a form of cancel culture? And let me frame this correctly for you. Because we have some of the most moving, inspirational, jaw-dropping, amazing musicianal talent. I don't even know if musicianal is a word, but talent, musical talent, and songs that we all sing, and we not secretly, we employ people who are part of the LGBT community to be musicians and all of that, as long as they do it quietly. But so doesn't the church kind of have a cancel culture where we want their gifts, but we don't want them to talk about their lives?
I think that's a good question. So I'm going to start it again. I know I don't like to look at the church as a monolith, because I think that
I know you clarify that all the time.
Yeah, I just think it's too broad of a stroke, because to a person, depending on their context, they may include the evangelical church in that.
Let's move this down to the Black Protestant churches.
Okay, it's still not a monolith, but okay, but I will concede in this way that I don't think so. I don't think that's a cancel culture. I think that is simply a matter of discretion, and I think discretion and cancellation are two different things. A person can, again, using the church, a particular church can approach a particular subject a certain way, and that's the way they want to approach that particular subject. That's discretionary. That's very different than canceling a person, canceling an individual in any way, shape, form, or fashion. And so I think that's the beauty of the tapestry that is the church, that we have the ability to, we are all imperfect, serving a perfect God. So no, I reject that statement fully. Both sitting on both sides of the church, both from a leadership standpoint now, and then a leadership standpoint, I don't think that's cancel. I think that's discretion.
Q, you were shaking your head in agreement.
I agree. I think the church as a whole, of course, not all areas of the church, but overall, the church has really come a long way in being more accepting, number one. And number two, we definitely wasn't canceling people. The people who we knew, those even our local musicians and our favorite ones, we still rock with them. We still listen to them. Some of them still I listen to their songs, and some of them still my favorite artists. So overall, of course, you're still gonna have small portions, but no, the church is really you have some very traditional type churches that's just not gonna move at all. But overall, they've been accepting of people. That don't mean that they're gonna be accepting of the action, and that's two different things. And that's gonna be a different topic. But that's where my issue with cancel culture comes in, because it's not just about whether someone it's not about tolerance. Like, I can tolerate you and love you all the same without agreeing with you. But a lot of people with cancel culture, they're like, no, if you don't agree with me and you don't think it and view it the same way and in lockstep use the same type of language concerning a certain thing, then you're against us, and that's a problem. And that's probably the biggest thing that I hate about cancel culture, because it's that bipolar mentality. You're either for us or against us, and in most cases that's not the case. I can be for you as a person and disagree with what you say. I'm for Nikki. I'm 100% Nikki, and I disagree with 95% of the stuff she said.
Every week.
Right.
Derek, did you raise your hand?
I did, because I'm glad you brought the church up, because I heard Q talking about the hypocrisy of cancel culture. And let me say that one thing that stumped me, because this whole thing with the baby situation, I was speaking to a friend about it, and we were just talking about the outrage or whatever. And he asked me a question. He was like, well, he said, don't you think that the church is like guilty of doing far worse? You know, we're talking about churches that we know, right? Because of our sort of upbringing in Pentecostal churches or what have you. And he comes from a very Pentecostal background. And he was saying, I've heard far worse than, coming across from pulpits. And it's like, so we can counsel the baby for saying these things, but we don't bring that same thing to our churches, right? And that kind of stumped me, to be honest, because I'm a person who, I attend church and I'm a part of the church and I'm pro-church and all that kind of stuff. So I would just say that put me in a place that was uncomfortable. And then secondly, I think that just to kind of reference what Q was saying earlier, is that we can disagree, at least from my perspective. I feel like we can disagree about certain things, and we can have different opinions about certain things and all that kind of stuff. But one thing that I know that like critical race theory is like controversial right now, but like in my school, we did a deep dive into CRT, right? And one thing that fascinated me about that is that there is not a counter argument to like racism, right? Because the minute you allow somebody to sort of start making their argument as to why white supremacy is not a thing and it's not systemic racism in America, that brings validity to that. And there's no validity in that argument. So it's like, just to bring that into this circle of what we're talking about right now, is that for me, there's certain things that there's not a valid counter argument. Because when your counter argument says that these people should not have humanity, then I can't allow that into my space, because I disagree. Right. So just want to throw that out there.
Could I was thinking about when I brought up the question to Bishop initially about the church, I was in complete disagreement with what both he and Q said. Okay. And then I thought, okay, I came up with an example that is absolutely on point to that. Kim Burrell got up and preached about homosexuality and LBGT, and we ain't heard from Sister since.
Well,
she got canceled.
Okay.
What that problem is, Bishop?
What?
She flirts in that other arena. Even though she's a gospel artist, she was best friends with Whitney Houston and a lot of people outside of that. So has she been totally secluded to the church, then that probably wouldn't have went out there like that.
And I agree, we're not allowed to step out of our box with our own opinion, because as Nikki said, there are consequences to having your opinion.
And so Kim Burrell is still around. It's just that right at that moment when that happened, her star was, really, really rising into a huge, a much larger arena, because she was supposed to be on the Ellen show, remember, and Ellen canceled, right? So she was stepping outside of this church box, not that she's really in it, right? But but she's okay with that, because and she's part of the Church of God in Christ, and those type of people will embrace that. And they're like, hey, yeah, she's standing up for something. And so, yeah, so she made the choice, I guess, a calculated choice to just say, I will give up all of this, whatever it is, because of the way I feel about certain things. So.
And again, she said it was a spirit, like the spirit of homosexuality. Is that She ain't say that they should all be hung up by a rope. I mean, that's her opinion, whether you agree with it or not. When does that turn into cancel culture? I'm sorry, go ahead.
But she failed to read the room as well because her fan base is gay people. You know what I'm saying? And so it caused a backlash, like in social media, of where I mean they were dragging her for the wigs and the makeup and the shoes. You know, when she fell in her Yves Saint Laurent, you know, and all that. Like, boy, I mean, they're still dragging her for that. So that's what I said earlier. Is that I feel like if you're going to have these opinions and you want to use your so-called freedom of speech, you just need to make sure you read the room, because count up all the costs, whatever it's going to be. If your fan base, like Chick-fil-A understood that their fan base was not necessarily the gay community, right? Their fan base, they were trying to go for racists and Christians, right? So they're like, well, I'm completely fine with this, because we got enough Trump supporters that's going to buy our chicken, right? And so they don't, I guess they same thing with Papa John's. They counted up all the costs and they were fine with it. So that's all I'm saying, is just make an educated, decision, whatever it's going to be.
So, Erica, should you have to pay the cost for having an opinion that's yours?
These days you do.
No, not do you. Should you?
Should you? You should always count the cost. But I think what we are failing to realize is, in my opinion, there's something very political that's going on, and it's using this cancel culture as a weapon. And so I just kind of look at this a little different. Yeah, we should be able to dictate or monitor or influence behavior by dollars. Absolutely. But when there's an agenda going on and you're using people who have felt marginalized, for a long time, and now they have a little bit of power, so they feel, and you're tricking them into thinking that they have some power, and you're giving them this weapon. I think it's dangerous. I think it's very dangerous, because now we're counseling people. Okay, let's look at what happened with Felicia Rashad. And that really touched home with me, because we don't even know this whole Bill Cosby situation. Now, I have a personal, I believe something very different about it, but she just made a statement that was really just a copy of what the Philadelphia Supreme Court said, and they wanted to counsel her. They wanted to take her money away. Okay, and this is somebody who has really, hasn't really stepped out of line with anything. Okay, so you're saying that she should have been counseled? No. So I'm saying right now we're in this very real crazy point in time, and yeah, we should count the cost, but we need to also be cognizant of there's something else that's going on, and we need to look at that too. And I'm sorry.
I want to get back to that. What else is going on? But Q he's fuming and shaking.
Just adding on to that, not only did they try to cancel Felicia Rashad, but it was a statement that she said post Bill Cosby release. So it's one thing if you said, oh, he's been found guilty by the courts. The court said he's guilty, so now we can say he's guilty, he's despicable, blah, blah, blah. They had to turn around, dismiss, reverse, whatever they did with the case. So that case is no longer standing, but the powers that be still want to hold him in that same light that they were holding him in early. So how is it still not okay for you to say something positive about somebody or something after they've been basically acquitted from the things that they were accused of? It's an agenda-based thing.
But he wasn't. But he wasn't. And I know everybody has their own feelings with the Bill Cosby thing, right? I don't have a decision on Bill Cosby because I wasn't in the room. He may have, he may not have. I don't know. They could have all lied. There's so many variables of things that could have taken place that some of that stuff was true and all that stuff could be a lie.
This is not about. But
Nikki, my point is, once they released him from that, though,
he wasn't acquitted. So she made a statement showing her support after he had his charges dismissed on technicality. She made her statement of support, which she's entitled to. But when you speak and you are also what the president of a college, there's going to be a lot of people who don't want their their college president aligning with a potential um, man who's been charged with inappropriate things. Like, I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong, but I'm saying you can say what you want and feel what you want, but in certain lights, you're going to also be held responsibly on both sides, and that doesn't mean it's always going to go the right way.
Q.
Bishop, I think it's important. I think it's important to throw this in there because accountability is I take my issues with that word because accountable means that there was an actual standard that's appropriate. So accountability is not the right word. I do agree that people will there'll be repercussions. Repercussions predicated upon somebody's actions, but I specifically like what Erica's talking about an agenda, because again, had that been a white man, that goes very differently. Just use the former president of the United States of America, who had similar scenarios, similar allegations, and because of those very simple facts, that was handled very differently. But accountability, I don't like that word because that would suggest that there's a appropriate standard that's set, and unfortunately, that's just not the case.
Okay. I saw Q, I saw Erica, I saw Derek. All of y'all had to say. Let me say this. Let's clear the statement. He was not acquitted. Okay. What he was is his case and the charges were dismissed because they ruled rather that he should never have been prosecuted in the first place because of the deal. So his release was not about his innocence or guilt. So let's just clear that part up so we can make sure we're all on the same page. Having said that, Q and Erica, Derek, let's start with Derek because you had something, and then let me go to Erica and then Q.
Well, again, I would just keep saying this. It's a failure to read the room and just to understand who you are and what where you are and what time you're living in and all these kinds of things. I went to Howard, so of course I feel a certain type of way because Howard is right in the middle of rebuilding the programs and all this kind of stuff. Very happy to have someone like Felicia Rashad, who is, a Howard baby, coming back and all this kind of stuff. And right in the middle of all of that, she throws a wrench in the whole plan because she felt it necessary to make a statement, which was not necessary, in my opinion, because I feel like, as we all understand, or we should understand, the weight of our voices in the situation, right? You can support your friends. I can support my friends. I'm on the show right now, and there's certain things that I won't say, whether I believe it or not, because I know I have a platform, right? Whether you like it or not, that's me and me understanding that. Why didn't she understand that? If she supported her friend, fine. Call him and let him know something or whatever. But you're representing this at this point. Your voice is not just representing you. It's representing a whole university, right? That's just like if you're a politician or whatever, your voice is not just representing you. Your voice is sounding for a bunch of people, and they didn't go for it. The reason why she had to come back and apologize is because the students were in an uproar about it all.
Erica, and then Q.
So I didn't go to Howard University. I did not go to HBCU. My sister went to Howard. I host a show where I talk to only Black people, and most of those people that have been on that show have come from Howard University. I have a very weird connection with it. See, what you're saying now is because what she said, it wasn't, in fact, she basically mirrored or copied exactly what the Supreme Court said. So now you're saying that she can't even say that. That's a problem. Now you are policing what people can say. You're policing what people can think. Now it'd be different if she said something that was wholly different. Okay. But what she said was not. I think we need to be careful about that. As far as the students jumping on board, again, we need to look at that agenda, because there are a lot of things that's going on that's influencing how people are seeing things. As far as Bill Cosby is concerned, the case should have never gone to the, it should have never been tried in the first place. That's why they had to drop it. So when that is the case, then there is no innocent or guilt because there was never a case. So why is he still being held to this same? Just because now it's because you have to remember this case was tried in the court of public opinion for years, and we have a whole history to use as proof that people lie. People also tell the truth, but people lie. And people have lied against black people, black men in particular. Okay? So this whole thing that's going on with Bill Cosby, and then to pull her into it for merely just basically copying what the Supreme. So what? You're going to hold the Supreme Court? You're going to counsel them as well?
So you said that the Supreme Court said that a terrible wrong had been righted, the language that she used?
She used exactly what they said.
I didn't see
exactly what they said.
Language. Okay,
exactly.
I didn't. I only saw her
but
say
even then,
Right,
but even then, she has every right to even say that. And then we don't even know.
Yes, she does.
Okay, right. She does have every right to, but we need to be more careful about this. But we also have a right to cancel you for anything and everything because just like that, she was subject to being canceled for that. Who's to say that tomorrow we can say, "Oh, the sky is blue." Oh no, I'm going to cancel you because now the majority of the people say that the sky is red. That's exactly where we're headed. I mean, I hate that a lot of us can't see that, but that's what's going on right now, and it gets me worked up because I don't like it. It's a very bad habit, especially for black people to do that to other black people. I'm sorry, I'm done with my rant.
Okay, so what she said was, I just looked it up. What she said was, finally, a terrible wrong is being righted. A miscarriage of justice is corrected. That was what her tweet.
Right, but I don't think the Supreme Court said don't use those.
Here's what the Supreme Court said. The Supreme Court said this. It was an affront to fundamental fairness, particularly when it results in a criminal prosecution that was foregone for more than a decade. It said justice, fair play, and decency require the district's attorney to, it goes on into some other language there. But what the Supreme Court said is that it was an affront to fundamental fairness, and there should not have been a criminal prosecution.
Right. So I feel like if she had just copy pasted that, I probably would have been okay with it. It still would have been a little bad in poor taste. But I mean, I'm just saying, I know we're playing semantics, but I just feel like to say that what she said is the same as the Supreme Court. No, I feel like she should have.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry, but it does mean the same. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
But it's not. It's not at all the same words. The words are literally absolutely not the same words. She didn't paraphrase. And again, I'm not saying I'm not picking a side either way with Bill Cosby, whether he did or he didn't. Like I'm super neutral because I know it can go both directions. But when you offer support like that and you do have a position, you are aligning yourself with something. And I can easily see parents who have children at Howard University saying, if those parents felt as though any of the accusations that he was accused of, that he was improper in those cases, I wouldn't want the president of my kids' college lining with somebody who supports sexual assault. Again, I'm not saying he did or he didn't. I wasn't in any of those rooms. I have no clue. I hope whatever happens for him, to be able to rectify his life, I hope that he gets that opportunity, and as do the accusers if they lied. I hope that they get their day as well. But when you offer support in one direction or another, and if you have a public platform or you are a public person, you are held to scrutiny differently. Is it right? No, not necessarily, but it is what it is. So I think it's perfect when y'all are saying reading the room. That's a very important skill, is to know, who am I talking to? Is it even safe to say it amongst these people? Do these people speak my same language? Are we on the same level? And a lot of times, as I think we're coming to find out, we're not with a lot of people. And let's be real, a lot of people don't do research. A lot of people just get their information from the news. So they're going off of emotions versus actual information or data. And that's to me even more dangerous that's just more dangerous altogether, to speak on things that you've only been taught by the television or by the media. Because you want to talk about agendas, that's a whole other agenda in itself.
Right. So you're saying that someone who is arguably closer to him than we are wouldn't possibly have more information about the situation.
I mean, many of us can easily say
Right.
we
So
have
it's cool.
Many of us can
Right.
easily say we have people in our family who have molested family members, but we don't tell.
Hmm.
I mean,
Hmm.
it doesn't mean it
But
didn't
that's not the
happen.
situation. That's
But
not the
that's kind of the
situation.
scenario that you try to just use. I mean, we don't
No, it's
know,
not. That's
and we
not.
don't know
No, it's
their
not.
relationship just because they were
Well,
on
let me go
TV
to
for
the
30
quote.
years.
Let me go
No,
to
go
the
ahead.
quote real quick. When we talk about a
Hmm.
terrible wrong has been righted, see, people hear what they want to hear.
Hmm.
Now, if I wanted to, I could take that and say, if I'm so much against a justice system manipulating things in order to put somebody in jail, no matter what the reason was for, if it's that legit, then you don't have to go the wrong way about doing the right thing, because then that still becomes wrong. So even if she put that, and I said, yeah, I think it's terrible that our government can misproperly use the law in order to get somebody put in jail. From that mindset, a terrible wrong has been righted, because under any circumstance, that's wrong to do, especially from people in that type of power position. But if you feel a certain way about Bill Cosby, you won't even read it that way. You're going to take what you hear and you're going to attach it and associate it with what triggers you the most. And that's the dangerous thing about triggers. Triggers, and I'm going to give you some wisdom. I'm going to give everybody some wisdom here. So now you can hit Dr. Bright's Cash App.
Get it, baby.
I deal with triggers all the time, and some things I can be triggered in also. The danger with triggers is not even that you're incorrect in what your trigger is, but most often it causes you to make an inappropriate response to what you hear. So it's the way a person responds to a triggered statement that usually makes it come off wrong, that makes them very limited in their mindset, that makes them not even hear what's actually being said, because you got triggered. So your response is kicked in a certain way that took away your logic and rationale. That's why you shouldn't be triggered, not because you're wrong.
So
all of this that I keep, go ahead, Dr.
No,
Bright, I'm sorry.
So is I guess the sum total of what cancel culture really is it having a $50 response to a 50-cent problem?
Cancel culture in itself, and I'll let somebody else jump in my opinion, cancel culture in itself is not wrong, but the way that it's used can always be, it can turn something that could be a positive, and depending on the way it's used, it turns it into a negative. So like I said, it's not like let's agree to disagree. No, you better agree. If not, then we canceling you. Number one. Number two, people look to have their feelings hurt. The reason I'm so done with social media and cancel culture is because nobody has any desire to understand context. Somebody can say something. Nobody looks to understand what the context of what this person is saying. They just say, oh, they said that. Oh, you use a trigger word. Did you say something about a Jewish person? Oh, you done. We canceling you. You don't even hear what that was. Nick Cannon, did they hear what Nick Cannon said? They were literally, Nick Cannon was literally just talking about how the original Semite, from a language perspective, I can't be anti-Semitic because it comes from the same area or region that I'm from. He wasn't even talking directly toward nobody, but he said some trigger words. People got upset, people got offended, and then he had to go on an apology tour for the next 6 months. That's what I don't like about cancel culture.
You're absolutely correct. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
that's all I have to add.
So what's our resolution? How do we change it? How do we impact it? How do we improve it?
Stay away from them idiots and stay off of social media.
There has to be, and I know Bishop's gonna get me for this word, but there has to be some accountability to the people that we give our money to, right?
Yep.
For the places we spend our money, there has to be some, right?
Again, if you don't like what they do, then you don't have to spend your money with that particular organization. I mean, that's your prerogative. But that's very different than saying, and you have to think, to Q's point, which I agree with that particular proportion of his point. I don't have to spend, as Nikki mentioned, she doesn't spend her family, well, she don't spend her money with no meat organization, but her family with Chick-fil-A, that's their prerogative. That's very different, though, than saying, and y'all don't need to either because I don't like what they said. And I think those are very different things. And I think, the challenge with that then is that, that's your personal prerogative. That's what you decide to do. I think the challenge with that becomes when you want to force someone to see it and think and believe the way you do. Because again, I want to bring race back into this because race is certainly a part of this. We don't see that same, and if someone could give me an example, I'd love to hear it. We don't see that same emphasis and impetus put when it is a non-African American that's in the seat of being canceled. We don't see that same level of force being put there. We don't see the same level of intensity. We don't see that same level. You got the My Pillow guy saying Donald Trump him and this and this and this and this and this and this and then all this is going on over and over and over and over again. And his commercials are still running on CNN, and CNN who debunks the man's stuff. I don't see that we see that same emphasis. So I think
so if Eminem had said it as opposed to the baby, would we be having the same conversation?
He did, and then he had to go on the whole tour with Elton John, holding hands and doing all those type of stuff like that.
So it would have been the same for Eminem.
He did. Yeah, Eminem had to backpedal too after a while.
He did.
What about if it was Harry Connick Jr.?
That would be so out of character, I think, for him. So
You know what I'm trying to say.
No, I know, but you have to look at the person too, because I think about Eminem, and he's been problematic in my opinion since he came on the scene. So I now remember that he did have to go on an apology tour, but it still was not on the level.
But did he get canceled?
Right. No, he didn't get canceled. That's what I was
didn't get canceled. And that's my point. He wasn't canceled.
Right. Absolutely.
Was he also before cancel culture though? Like, could he say those same things today? Like, or was he before all the cancel culture like hit the fan and kept spinning? You know what I mean? Because we are in a very high social media society right now, an Eminem thing, right or wrong, was like just before everybody had MySpace and everything.
You cannot drop the beat. The baby's problem was he dropped the beat. You can say that's why I said I'm gonna start doing music, because musicians and comedians are the last two people who can get away with saying anything they want to. If the baby would have said that and it was still music going over top of it, he'd have been all right. You say it a cappella, then they think you standing on it, then it's a problem.
Well, Kramer said some stuff, and he ain't been behind the mic since.
He definitely canceled.
Yeah. You got to be funny too. He wasn't funny when he was doing it.
Right.
Mr. Bright, just in conclusion, I would just
they didn't cancel Seinfeld though. Just a point of reference.
It was already over, ended at that point. But I just want to say that this was a great conversation. I really appreciate being on this panel with such wonderful people and hearing different perspectives. I really enjoyed it. But just in conclusion for me, I just want to say a few things. There was a question about freedom of speech. I just think that because that kind of comes in here. A lot of people assume that you have a right in America to just say whatever, and that's not true. There is something called protected speech, but not every type of speech is protected, including things like libel and things like that. So you don't have the right to just say whatever you want to say. Also, what Q was saying and some others are saying, I agree that I don't like the way the cancel culture has been weaponized in this generation right now. And sometimes it takes off so fast without people getting a full perspective or understanding of what even, the issue was. But with that same breath, I agree with a lot of the cancel culture that I see on social media, and specifically Twitter. And I feel like we ought to have a Karen registry. So if you are I feel like we ought to be able to put your name on a list. You ought to have to register just like a sex offender. If you are accused or you do something on video and you're caught like the person in the Victoria's Secret, you have your Black person. I feel like we ought to have a registry for you too, and we ought to know who's living in our neighborhoods and who are working at these companies, because I don't want you serving me and you don't like Black people.
Thank you all so much for being a part. I think this was a fantastic conversation. Next week, we're going to go back to our surviving series. We're going to be talking about surviving domestic abuse and domestic violence. So we have someone coming to share their story. So next week, same bad time, same bad channel. We'll see you. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.